The sharp trill of a woodpecker echoed through the forest. The group of birdwatchers froze, eyes instantly scanning the treetops. "There!" one of them whispered, pointing at a flash of red feathers among the leaves.
"Just a cardinal," the guide said, his voice calm and steady. "They're common here. Let's keep going. There's a nesting site of robins up ahead."
The group followed him along the trail, stepping carefully over roots and fallen branches. A pale blue cluster of eggs nestled in a nearby branch soon caught their attention. Quiet murmurs of admiration rippled through the group as they gazed upon the fragile sight. But the guide's focus had shifted. His eyes were locked on a vine curling tightly around an oak tree. It didn't look like anything native. Its edges were tinged with deep purple, and tiny, green thorns glinted faintly in the sunlight.
"Stay here,"
he said, lowering his binoculars. His tone was a mix of curiosity and unease. The guide stepped closer, his boots crunching softly on the forest floor. Up close, the vine seemed even stranger. Its leaves were glossy, catching the sunlight in an almost unnatural way. They moved slightly. It was a subtle, deliberate motion. Something wasn't right.
"What is that?"
someone called out, breaking away from the rest of the group.
"Not sure,"
the guide replied, crouching down for a closer look. His fingers hovered over the vine, hesitating.
"Doesn't look familiar. Might be invasive."
He leaned in, careful not to touch it. The vine shifted slightly, its leaves trembling, even though the air was still. The guide hesitated. The movement wasn't natural.
"Strange,"
he murmured, stepping back. The forest had gone quiet, the birdsong fading into silence. His hand hovered just above the vine. Its glossy leaves rippled faintly, almost as if aware of his presence. He frowned, shaking his head to push away the unsettling thought.
"Let me just..."
he began, reaching out cautiously. The vine exploded into motion, a blur of green that struck before anyone could react. It lashed out, twisting like a whip, and coiled around his arm with terrifying precision. Gasps come up from the group as the plant tightened its grip, its thorns sinking into the guide's skin. Blood welled up, dark red against the vine's purple leaves.
"What the..."
the guide shouted, yanking his arm back. The vine only tightened, digging deeper.
"Help him!"
someone screamed, panic in their voice. The group were caught between disbelief and fear. The guide thrashed, clawing at the vine with his free hand, but the plant moved with purpose, shifting and tightening with every attempt to break free.
"Get it off!"
he yelled, his voice cracking as the pain grew unbearable. His knees buckled, and he collapsed onto the forest floor. The group stepped closer but stopped, their fear rooting them in place. His body convulsed violently, cries turning to guttural gasps as his muscles seized.
"What's happening to him?"
a woman whispered, clutching her binoculars like they might protect her. The guide's face twisted in agony, his eyes wide and glassy.
"It burns!"
he choked out, his voice raw.
"It's inside!"
Thorns dug deeper, drawing fresh blood that dripped onto the soil in thick, dark streams. The guide's body jerked again, the burning spreading as though fire coursed through his veins. A younger birdwatcher took a step forward, gripping a branch as a makeshift tool.
"Maybe we can..."
The vine lashed out before they could finish, a tendril snapping toward them with violent force. They stumbled back with a sharp scream, dropping the branch as they narrowly avoided its grasp.
"Stay back,"
another voice warned, pulling them further away. The guide's convulsions began to slow, his movements reduced to faint, agonized twitches. The vine loosened its grip slightly, almost as if satisfied with its work. His ragged breaths filled the silence as the group huddled together in terror. The forest seemed to darken, the once bright morning light fractured by shadows. The air grew heavy, the chirps and rustles of wildlife replaced by an oppressive quiet. The guide trembled on the ground, his breath shallow and uneven. The vine writhed around his arm, its movements erratic yet deliberate. Every attempt to help had only made it worse. No one dared move now. Then, with a guttural yell of desperation, the guide fumbled for his pocket. His shaking fingers closed around a small knife. The blade flicked open with a sharp click, glinting in the sunlight.
"Hold still,"
someone called out, their voice trembling. The guide didn't need the advice. There was no time for precision. Gritting his teeth, he brought the blade down on the vine, sawing at its base with furious strokes. The plant seemed to sense the danger. Its tendrils convulsed, tightening their grip as if in protest. The thorns sank deeper, tearing his skin and drawing fresh streams of blood. He let out a strangled cry, pushing harder. With a final desperate stroke, the vine snapped. A piece of it remained attached to his arm, its grip loosening but still embedded in his flesh. The severed length thrashed briefly on the ground before retreating back toward the tree like a wounded predator. The guide stumbled back, clutching his arm. His face was pale, beads of sweat dripping from his brow. His legs wobbled beneath him, barely holding him upright.
Let's get out of here,
he whispered, his voice hoarse. The group sprang into action. 2 of them rushed to his side, draping his arms over their shoulders to support him. The others circled protectively around them, their eyes darting to every shadow in the forest. They moved as quickly as they could, each step feeling like an eternity. Their breaths came in short, panicked bursts as they hurried down the trail, glancing back over their shoulders. Behind them, the vine swayed gently, its leaves shimmering as though nothing had happened. They reached the trailhead just as dusk began to settle over the forest. The guide dropped onto a fallen log, struggling to catch his breath. One of the group members pulled out a first aid kit, their hands trembling as they worked to wrap his arm. The piece of vine embedded in his skin oozed a dark, sticky sap that seemed anything but natural.
Are you okay?
Someone asked, their voice tight with urgency. The guide shook his head, his face pale and haunted.
That thing,
he muttered, his eyes flicking nervously back toward the forest.
I've never seen anything like it.
The group exchanged uneasy glances. One of them pulled out their phone and began scrolling through the photos they had taken earlier. The images of the vine were sharp, its thorns gleaming in the sunlight.
You need to tell someone,
another said, holding the phone out to the guide. The local authorities were less than impressed. The small office smelled of stale coffee and damp paper. The guide sat stiffly across from a disinterested officer, his arm heavily bandaged and his face tight with pain.
So you're saying a plant attacked you?
The officer asked, his tone filled with skepticism.
You sure it wasn't just poison ivy? That stuff can make people itch like crazy. It wasn't poison ivy,
the guide snapped, his exhaustion giving his voice an edge. He placed the photos and his scrawled notes on the desk, his hand shaking slightly.
Look, this isn't normal. You won't find this in any field guide.
The officer picked up the photos, his expression unreadable as he studied them.
Looks like some overgrown kudzu to me,
he said with a shrug, sliding them back across the desk.
Maybe you brushed up against it too hard.
The guide's frustration bubbled over.
You're not listening. It moved, it wrapped around me like a snake. It's alive!
The officer sighed, leaning back in his chair.
Look, I'll file a report, okay? But there's not much we can do about an aggressive plant. Just stay away from that area.
The guide stormed out, his jaw tight and his hands balled into fists. The officer's dismissive words stung, but he refused to let them be the end of it. That night, he gathered his notes, the photographs, and every detail he could remember. He sent the information to a network of environmental organizations, determined to find someone who would take him seriously. Unbeknownst to the guide, his evidence reached the hands of people far more willing to act. Deep within the SCP Foundation, a file was opened.
Unusual predatory behavior, vines with anomalous mobility, possible biohazard,
an agent read aloud, their tone brisk.
Send a team,
their superior replied without hesitation.
If even half of this is true, it's worth containment.
And just like that, the Foundation's attention turned to the quiet forest, its secret no longer hidden. Darkness had fallen over the forest, the once inviting paths were now cloaked in shadows. The Foundation vehicles rolled to a halt just beyond the trailhead, their engines settling into an ominous, low growl before cutting out completely. The agents stepped out one by one, their movements swift and efficient. Dressed in tactical gear, their faces were concealed behind reflective visors, their presence unnerving in the stillness.
We'll retrace the path described in the report,
the lead agent said, unfolding a map and gesturing to the trail ahead.
Stay sharp. We treat this like any other anomaly until proven otherwise.
The team moved in formation, their boots crunching softly on the forest floor. Floodlights mounted to their gear cast sharp beams of light into the surrounding darkness. Every rustle of leaves or snap of a twig set nerves on edge, but they pressed forward, their discipline unshaken.
Eyes on the target,
came a whisper from the rear of the team. Ahead, the vine came into view. It was unmistakably larger than the photos had shown. The leaves, tinged with deep purple, shimmered faintly under the pale moonlight. The green thorns glinted menacingly, sharper than the initial report suggested. Coiled tightly around the tree, the vine's tendrils stretched outward, almost as if searching for something. Or someone. The lead agent raised a hand, signaling the team to halt.
Thermal scan,
they ordered, their tone steady despite the weight of the moment. The team prepared, their equipment whirring faintly in the silence, as the forest seemed to watch. One of the agents stepped forward, wielding a handheld device. The screen flickered to life, displaying a map of heat signatures. A faint glow pulsed from the vine's core, growing brighter with each passing second.
It's reacting to us,
the agent murmured, lowering the scanner. The vine shifted slightly, its tendrils stretching toward the nearest source of heat. The team deployed a robotic arm, its mechanical joints clicking softly as it extended toward the vine. At the end of the arm, a set of shears gleamed under the floodlights, ready to cut. The vine responded instantly. A tendril lashed out, striking the arm with enough force to send it jerking backward. The operator tightened their grip on the controls, steadying the machine and maneuvering it away from another attack.
Defensive behavior,
the lead agent noted, their voice calm despite the rising tension.
Log its movements.
The robotic arm adjusted its approach, swinging wide before darting in. The shears snapped shut, slicing off a small section of the vine. The severed piece writhed violently. It was quickly secured in a containment tube, the lid sealing with a sharp hiss. The main vine grew more aggressive. Tendrils shot out, reaching toward the team with deliberate precision. The agents stepped back, moving cautiously, but keeping their lights trained on the advancing plant.
It's targeting warm bodies,
one agent said, watching the tendrils stretch toward them. Another glanced at the thermal scanner.
The heat signature spikes every time it moves. It's hunting.
The lead agent raised a hand.
Fall back. Keep your distance.
The team retreated, their movements careful as the vine continued its relentless pursuit. Its tendrils stretched further, nearly brushing the boot of the outermost agent before recoiling. Once they reached a safe distance, the lead agent activated their comm.
Sample secured. Behavior documented. Returning to base.
The forest remained eerily silent as the team disappeared into the shadows, the vine's tendrils twitching, as if it were already planning its next move. The agents exchanged wary glances, their steps quickening as they left the vine behind. The forest seemed darker now, every shadow a potential threat. Their focus was broken by a rustling in the underbrush. A raccoon emerged, its small eyes glinting in the beams of their lights. It sniffed the air, drawn toward the strange, sweet scent emanating from the vine.
Hold position,
the lead agent whispered, raising a hand to stop the team. The raccoon scurried closer, its curiosity leading it straight to the vine. It stood on its hind legs, pawing tentatively at the purple-tinged leaves.
Should we intervene?
One agent asked quietly, their voice tight with unease. Before anyone could respond, the vine reacted. A tendril shot out with terrifying speed, coiling around the raccoon's midsection. The animal let out a sharp cry, clawing at the vine as it tightened. More tendrils followed, wrapping around its limbs and neck. The thorns pierced through fur and flesh, eliciting a final, pitiful shriek. The agents watched in horrified silence as the raccoon's struggles grew weaker. The vine pulsed as it siphoned the animal's fluids. Within moments, the raccoon's body collapsed inward, its form reduced to a shriveled husk.
Unbelievable,
an agent muttered under their breath, their voice barely audible. The lead agent's expression hardened.
We've seen enough. This thing isn't just an anomaly. It's a predator. Containment is critical.
A new urgency gripped the team as they returned to their staging area. The severed piece of the vine writhed sluggishly within its containment tube.
Bring the reinforced container,
the lead agent ordered. An agent wheeled over a stainless steel case, its polished surface reflecting the harsh lights. Inside, layers of non-reactive material lined the container, designed to prevent any breach. Stainless steel had been chosen specifically because the plant couldn't penetrate metal.
Careful,
one agent murmured as the vine was transferred into the container. They worked methodically, ensuring no part of the specimen was left exposed. The lid closed with a satisfying click, the airtight seals engaging with a hiss. The team double-checked every seal, then checked them again.
Container is secure,
the handler confirmed, stepping back cautiously. The lead agent nodded.
Good. Let's make sure we leave nothing behind.
The group scoured the area, scanning for any fragments or spores that might have escaped during the transfer. Tools were sterilized, disposable gear sealed in hazardous materials bags, and every piece of equipment meticulously cleaned.
All clear,
another agent reported after completing the sweep. The team loaded the sealed container into their vehicle, each member moving with heightened caution. They all knew what was at stake. The vine wasn't just an anomaly to study, it was a predator waiting to spread. Failure wasn't an option. The arrival at the Foundation site should have been routine. The transport team moved with precision, unloading the reinforced container into the sterile transfer zone. Bright artificial lights illuminated the laboratory. Nearby, a hydroponic growth chamber stood ready, its glass walls bristling with sensors and automated irrigation systems. A small group of researchers and technicians gathered around, their attention fixed on the container. The air buzzed with quiet anticipation, an undercurrent of excitement barely masking the tension.
Careful with the transfer,
the lead scientist instructed, their eyes glued to the tablet in their hands. Their tone was firm, carrying the weight of prior warnings.
This specimen has already demonstrated its lethality. Let's not add another casualty tonight.
The container hissed softly, a faint exhalation, as its seals disengaged with a sharp click. The sound echoed in the sterile chamber, amplifying the weight of the moment. Two technicians moved forward, methodically guiding robotic arms toward the container's edge. Every movement was measured, deliberate. Then came a pause. A junior researcher edged closer, their curiosity overriding caution. They leaned in, their gloved hand moving toward the vine, seeking a better view.
"What are you doing?"
a senior colleague snapped, their voice sharp with alarm. It was too late. The vine exploded from the container, its tendrils moving with impossible speed. They lashed out, coiling around the researcher's arm in an instant. The force sent them staggering backward, a strangled cry escaping their lips.
"Get back!"
the lead scientist shouted, slamming the emergency alarm. Red lights flared, bathing the room in an ominous glow, and a shrill klaxon pierced the air. The researcher's body stiffened as the vine tightened its grip. Tendrils snaked around their torso and neck, pulling them to the floor. Their panicked gasps filled the room as their colleagues scrambled to intervene.
"Cut it loose!"
a technician yelled, grabbing a pair of long-handled shears, but the vine was faster. Its thorns sank deep, the pulsing rhythm of the tendrils intensifying. The researchers' struggles faltered, then ceased entirely. Their body began to collapse inward, skin and muscle withering as though drained of life. Within moments, they were a husk, hollow, lifeless.
"Pull back!"
the lead scientist barked, their voice cutting through the chaos. The team retreated, their faces pale as the vine retracted into its container with unnerving calm. Its movements were slow now, deliberate, almost satisfied. The breach prompted immediate action. The laboratory was sealed, the remains of the researcher incinerated, and the containment protocols underwent an urgent overhaul. The surviving specimen was relocated to a new containment unit, a custom-designed stainless steel planter housed within a hydroponic chamber. The planter's non-porous material ensured that the vine's roots could not extend beyond its confines. Automated systems managed its environment, providing water, nutrients, and controlled lighting without human intervention. The chamber itself was fitted with emergency failsafes. Retractable circular blades, sharp enough to sever the toughest organic material, were installed around the planter. These could be deployed instantly at the first sign of anomalous behavior. The walls of the chamber were reinforced, and observation windows were replaced with high-definition cameras to eliminate the need for direct human interaction.
"From this point forward," the lead scientist announced during the debriefing, "all contact with this specimen will be conducted using remotely operated robotics. No personnel will enter the containment room under any circumstances."
This anomaly, now formally designated as SCP-307, required stringent measures. The new protocols were unyielding. Any signs of anomalous activity would trigger an automated lockdown, complete with lethal countermeasures to neutralize the threat. Inside the chamber, SCP-307 appeared dormant. Its tendrils curled loosely within the stainless steel planter, swaying faintly as the automated irrigation system activated. But those who monitored the camera feeds noticed something unsettling. The plant seemed to stir, subtly and almost imperceptibly, whenever a warm body moved in the observation room beyond. For now, the containment held. But those familiar with SCP-307's behavior knew one chilling truth. It was waiting. Bright floodlights illuminated the chamber as researchers prepared for the next phase of testing. Beyond the reinforced glass, a robotic arm extended toward the planter, carrying a small cage. Inside, a white lab mouse pressed against the bars, its whiskers twitching in nervous anticipation.
Releasing test subject,
came the announcement over the intercom. The cage door slid open, and the mouse scurried out onto the chamber floor. For a moment, nothing happened. SCP-307's tendrils remained motionless as the mouse sniffed the air, hesitating as it neared the planter. Then, the vine struck. With blinding speed, a tendril snapped forward, wrapping tightly around the mouse's midsection. The animal let out a high-pitched squeak, its body contorting in vain against the plant's relentless grip. More tendrils followed, coiling around its limbs and head with a precision that was as efficient as it was horrifying.
Predation time 6 seconds,
the researcher noted, their voice clinical, masking the tension in the room.
No external injuries observed beyond thorn penetration.
As quickly as it had struck, the vine released its prey. The mouse's withered remains crumpled to the floor, its body drained of fluids. The tendrils retracted, curling back into a poised, waiting position, as though the attack had never occurred. Over the following weeks, SCP-307 endured rigorous environmental testing. Researchers experimented with extreme temperatures, humidity levels, and varying light conditions, hoping to discover a weakness. But the results were the same every time. SCP-307 thrived. Extreme cold, high heat, desiccation, it's unfazed, a researcher summarized during a briefing, their tone heavy with unease.
Its growth doesn't slow no matter the conditions. It's practically unkillable.
Detailed analysis of SCP-307's thorns and roots revealed more unsettling facts. The thorns contained a powerful compound capable of paralyzing prey within seconds. Meanwhile, the roots displayed an extraordinary cellular structure, allowing them to penetrate nearly any material, organic or inorganic. Stainless steel was one of the few exceptions, justifying its continued use in containment. But the most alarming revelations came during behavioral experiments. In one test, multiple prey animals were introduced into the chamber simultaneously. SCP-307 reacted immediately. Its tendrils moved with eerie precision, targeting vital areas, throats, limbs, torsos, immobilizing each animal in seconds. The plant's movements were efficient and deliberate, conserving energy while ensuring maximum effectiveness.
It's not just reacting,
a researcher noted in a debriefing.
It's calculating, prioritizing. We've started calling it Spider Ivy for a reason.
Another experiment deepened the sense of dread. When robotic arms were introduced into the chamber, SCP-307 adapted. Its tendrils maneuvered with flanking tactics, cornering the mechanical devices in a way that suggested deliberate strategy. The plant wasn't simply hunting. It was learning. The nickname Spider Ivy quickly evolved into a cautionary label. The danger became undeniable during a routine test involving a D-Class subject. Outfitted in a reinforced suit, the subject was instructed to approach SCP-307 with a thermal scanner. As soon as they entered the chamber, the plant's tendrils twitched, reacting to the heat signature.
Maintain a 2-meter distance,
the lead researcher warned over the intercom. But SCP-307 had other plans. A tendril shot out far beyond its usual range, coiling around the D-Class's arm. The suit, designed for protection, offered little resistance. Thorns pierced through the material, delivering their paralyzing venom. The subject screamed, their body jerking as the plant tightened its hold.
Deploy blades,
the lead researcher barked. The failsafe system activated immediately. Circular blades descended, slicing through the tendrils with mechanical precision. Severed sections of the vine thrashed wildly, releasing the D-Class, who crumpled to the floor, gasping for breath. But the crisis wasn't over. The severed pieces of SCP-307 began growing autonomously, tendrils snaking across the chamber floor and reaching for the walls. Their rapid expansion was unlike anything the team had observed before.
"Seal the room,"
came the urgent command. Doors slammed shut as the containment team scrambled to regain control. The plant's new growth shriveled under the assault, curling inward as its predatory expansion was halted. By the time the room was officially declared safe, the D-Class subject lay motionless on the floor, their body grotesquely altered. An autopsy later revealed the horrifying extent of SCP-307's invasion. A small breach near the faceplate of the insulating suit had allowed a tendril, labeled Vine B, to penetrate the subject's body. Inside, the results mirrored those of previous animal tests. The internal organs were gone, replaced by an intricate network of roots that extended throughout the skeletal structure. At the core of this network, a seed was discovered lodged within the subject's skull. Shoots had already begun to sprout toward the eye sockets, the beginnings of another growth cycle. The remains of the D-Class subject were promptly incinerated, the grim findings reinforcing the plant's terrifying adaptability and the deadly consequences of any containment failure. SCP-307 has since been formally classified as KETER. This anomaly was a stark reminder that even nature's simplest creations could become its most terrifying.